Welcome to The Gateway, your compass through the magical waters of spirit communication, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM New Orleans. I'm your host, C.L. Thomas. And I tell you what, this week's been quite the week. We've had a lot of rain, and I feel like I need someone to build me an ark just to drive down the road. It's crazy. It never rains here. So after a week of rain, we have a lot of rain sitting around. In a world where darkness may sometimes seem overwhelming, there are those who shine with an inner light, guiding others toward love, healing, and hope. Tonight, my guest, Jodi Dehn from Survivor Angels, an angel lightworker and intuitive empath, will take us on an exploration into not only the realms of lightworkers and angels, where miracles abound and divine intervention is ever present. Jodi, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you on. There's so much to discuss, and I definitely want to share just a little bit of my own story somewhere in here to get your thoughts on it. But first, please tell me what led you down the angel path.
Well, the first time I ever had an angel experience, I was only 3 years old. And of course, at the time, I didn't realize it. But I did not too many years after that. And the angels have been with me, as they are with everybody, all my life. It's just a matter of being open to them and recognizing them. So as time went on, I knew they were always there. And eventually I realized I was supposed to be a pastor. So I went to seminary. I have a Master of Divinity degree. I'm an ordained pastor, and I also served as an Army chaplain. And of course, when I initially heard my calling, women weren't even allowed to be ordained at that point. So I just kind of poo-pooed it all, but the angels kept telling me, no, that's what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to do, until finally I kind of gave in and said, okay, you twisted my arm long enough. Well, the whole piece with Survivor Angels then came about not too long ago. I don't even really kind of remember when, but it was in response to listening to so many people say, I have anxiety, I have depression, I struggle with life, I've been through traumatic experiences, and I'm sitting there thinking, where were your angels this whole time? Why weren't you listening to them? And I realized people didn't know they were there. They didn't know anything about them. They didn't know how they were bringing them messages, because that's all an angel's job is to bring you messages, to carry them back and forth. And so the light bulb went on. It's time to start Survivor Angels. And I've been through enough trauma in my life that I completely understood where they were coming from, been there, done that. And so Survivor Angels was born, and it's now a podcast and a blog and live events, books, you name it. And so here you and I sit tonight.
Well, you know what? It's interesting you said that about depression and everything, and that people don't know that their angels are there. I'll tell you shortly what happened to me just a few years ago. I went through a really dark phase in my life. I was living in Nashville, and I was very depressed and just didn't know which direction to go. And I felt like I needed help. And so I didn't know at the time that I always thought that, to call on angels, because the Archangel Michael kept coming into mind. And there was somebody else that I was talking to a lot that kept mentioning this particular angel. And I always thought, I think one of the things that people go through is that, how dare I, as a mortal human, attempt to get help from an angel? That was my whole thing. Like, I felt too low and all of that. So there's that side of it. And then the second side, well, that was my personal story. But then in the paranormal world, I hear a lot of people say that, oh, well, that's too religious for me. I can't acknowledge demons, but not angels.
Exactly. And that's the myth that's out there. Angels are non-religious energies. They're in all of the cultures, They're in all world religions, all the way back to ancient times, as far back as we can possibly imagine, even to before they could even write things down, even with the little hieroglyphic pictures and everything. And then they say, well, but I believe in demons. Demons are fallen angels. Like,
It's so bizarre, right? I get that all the time in the paranormal world, though, that it's I can't do that. It's too Catholic. It's too religious. It's too whatever.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's really it's very simple. And when you start studying the other cultures and the other religions, you find out that there is this common thread that runs through all of them, and it's angels. And it's just because they are just messengers. They're not trying to convert you into any religion. No, yeah, no political agendas, nothing. They are just there to carry messages to you. Some people call it their intuition. I call it angels. It's that gut feeling. It's that message that's coming through that's telling you do this and don't do that. And I mean, there are stories by the millions out there of how
Mm.
angels have saved people, gotten them turned around in life, got them on what their life's purpose is. It's amazing, and that's the part I love most about doing this is actually talking to people one on one and hearing their stories. Because every time I think I've heard them all, nope, there's another one that's even better.
It's strange what happened to me because this Archangel Michael, he would show up everywhere. I remember the room would get really hot and just different things that would happen. Like the number 44 kept showing up for the longest time. Like it would be on my grocery receipts, it would be on license plates, just everywhere I looked, that number was there. And it was
Mhm.
and it's I know there's a lot of skeptics out there probably going, "Oh, it's just 44." Of course, it's a common number, right? But I asked for a specific sign in a specific time period. I asked for that number, I think it was 6 different times in 24
Okay.
hours, and sure enough, it showed. And then on top of that, I thought I was going crazy. I went on this ghost hunt with a big group of people and I said, "You know what? If you're really there and interacting in my life, I want you to speak through the spirit box." You know, that spirit box that they all
Mhm.
use. And lo and behold, Angel came out. Like, you know how the investigators will always say, "Who's there? What's your name?" It said
Right.
Angel on several different times that night. So,
I've had that happen on some investigations too, where I'm not even asking and nobody else is asking either, and it will say angel. And so people then, of course, look at me and they're like, what? And I say, there's an angel present or maybe many angels, and they're just letting us know that they're there for those of you who don't realize that they're there. I always call them the angels before I go on any paranormal investigation and just say, make sure that you protect me mentally and emotionally. I don't worry so much physically. I probably should, but I haven't had to at this point. But I always call them in just to put that sort of shield of protection up, because there could be the demons there, the fallen angels. You don't know what you're going to get on an investigation.
so one of our listeners says, "I did a ritual to summon Archangel Raphael a few years ago, and white feathers started appearing in my room out of nowhere. I don't know if it's an angel or not. Any thoughts?"
Um, it without knowing everything, but if they were summoning Raphael, I would say it probably was. Raphael is the healing angel. If there were any shades of green that were appearing at the same time, that's Raphael's aura color. Raphael is also associated with, I have to stop and think real quick. Raphael is water, air. No, Raphael is air. I always get Raphael and Gabriel mixed up. Don't ask me why, but I do. Yes. Yeah, so Raphael would be the air element and everything. So you have to kind of start putting all these different things together of what's going on around you. And that's how you know for sure if it is an angel coming through. Um, the color green for the aura could come through in so many different ways. I know I had a message from a person just yesterday. And she said, when I was a child, she said, I woke up in the middle of the night and there was this bright green light in my bedroom and I didn't know what it was. And she said, my sister, who was older than me, was awake and said, well, what are you doing? And she's like, well, don't you see the green light? And she didn't see it, which that's not uncommon because they're only going to appear to those who are open to them or who the message is meant for at that point in time. And so, she asked me what that meant. And I said, if you are maybe having trouble sleeping, maybe you were in the middle of a dream or even a nightmare, that was Raphael that was there to comfort and soothe you. And you knew it was Raphael by the bright green light. I've had angels come as sparkles, as sweeps of light. Like you said, through numbers. A lot of times you can piece it together through the different numbers. Just depends. That gets really complicated, though, when you start trying to piece all that together.
Mhm.
Not that that isn't a good way to do it. It's just you need to look at a whole lot of different things. But that could very well have been an angel. I never poo poo it until something else pops in to tell me that no, it wasn't an angel, because our angels are always present with us 24/7, 365. They've been here since our soul was created, which is like all the way back.
What exactly is an angel? I know this might be a silly question, but
So
if we're not discussing it in religious terms, what exactly is an angel?
an angel is nothing more than energy, just like we are energy. The pictures of angels with wings and halos, that's not an that's an artist's depiction of what they believe an angel looks like. If you start going by some of the ancient texts and scriptures, you actually find out they're quite ugly and quite scary. If you were to actually see an angel manifest in the way some of those writings describe them, um, it would be now I'm just going to go from the Christian thread here, but if it was the seraphim have four faces. Let's see if I can get them right. The human, the lion, the ox, and the eagle. That's what will appear. And then with multiple wings, not just two wings. Those cute little cherubs that we see, like on Valentine's Day, Cupid, that's part of a Greek myth about the love god Eros. And it's really it's a whole long story is what it is. I'm not going to go into that now because that brings up all kinds of other questions. But it's a love story. And again, it was just artists that started going, well, let's just go. Cupid with the bow and arrow is the one that did this. It's it's a myth. That is all a myth. Angels are the opposite of what they think they are. I say angels are light and love, but they don't look like light and love. They look like monsters, basically. The fallen angels are the bright, pretty, fancy ones. And that's why you've got to be careful for them because they can suck you in a heartbeat because you go, oh, pretty. It's like somebody offering a child a piece of candy. Oh, candy.
So it's just the opposite.
That's what. Go ahead.
Is those, the paranormal investigators, they always get the sounds of little kids. Are those actually demons or are they real little kids, in your opinion?
So this is the way I see it, and it doesn't mean that I'm 100% right because, as you know, all of the paranormal and supernatural is very subjective. None
Yes.
of us know for sure. So the way I see it is spirits are deceased, of course, and the angels talk through them, is what they do. So the angels are manifesting through spirits because that's who's familiar to us is beings who have passed on or maybe they haven't crossed over. Just, every situation is different. Because, and I've been told this by several different, people. Um, I was, by a shaman and a couple of other people too, that spirits aren't able to talk themselves. And that's why I believe that it's actually the angels that will speak because they're the messengers. But they use the spirits sort of as the vessel, if you will, and they come through that way. So, like, this is a little bit going down a little bit different path here, but so when someone says, "Well, my grandma brought me this message," it probably was your grandma that you saw or believe that you saw, but it was an angel that was bringing you a message, not your grandma. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So, do
Yeah.
you think, when you were saying that the fallen angels are really pretty and they try to, um, what's the word? They try to make you feel like that you can trust them or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, do you think that these voices that we catch, EVPs and such from little kids, could be demons and not just that cute little kid?
They could be. Absolutely, they could be. I can't rule it out. Um, and there again, that's why I say all of this is not easy to figure out. And so some people will say, "Well, you're so sure about this and you're so sure about that." I'm not, because you just don't know. And just like our universe is complicated, the supernatural and paranormal is equally as complicated because it's all intertwined. I
Mhm.
was in Panama just a few months ago and visited an indigenous village there and was able to talk to their tribal leader. I had to use an interpreter, of course. Um, but my first question to him is, "Do you have angels in your culture?" And he just lit up like, wow. And the interpreter, the translator, even said, "Never had this question before." And he went on this whole long explanation about who they see angels as being. And of course, the interpreter came back with everything. This is going to be one of my podcasts in the not too distant future. I'm pulling together some other pieces for it. But they see angels completely intertwined with nature, which again just validates that everything is connected. Our energy, angel energy, any paranormal energy, nature, everything. We are all basically one energy with different sort of offshoots. We come out of that one piece of energy in different ways.
That's interesting.
That's where I'm at with this.
When you said
To
that
be
podcast comes
continued.
out, 'cause I'm gonna listen in on that. What about the is it called the Nephilim? Is that an
Oh,
angel?
the Nephilim.
I always get them all confused. There's so many of them.
Yes. The Nephilim, the jury is out on them also. They come from a section of the Old Hebrew texts called the Apocrypha, which was taken out of both the Hebrew and the Christian books. Um, the Nephilim are in three of those Hebrew texts called the books of Enoch, and there's three of them. And basically, what it said in those books is that they were angels that were here and mated with humans, and they're giants. Okay. The reason that the books were pulled out is because the Jewish religion believed that those books were just mysticism. Now, if they were to go back and look at those right now, knowing everything that we know today about the supernatural and the paranormal, my question would be, should we put those books back in? So, do the Nephilim really have a place? Were they for real? Just as much as fallen angels are, as much as the light and love angels are here. What do you think? They are considered fallen angels because they mated with humans. There is another side of scholars that will say it's not possible for angels to mate with humans.
It's interesting. There's
Another avenue that I am pursuing, trying to get answers on. A
There
little more
are
definitive as much as we can know.
they have found giants all over the
Yes.
world, but here in Nevada, or Nevada is how they say it here. I keep having to remind myself it's Nevada, not Nevada. I'm used to Nevada. Um, they found there's a cave here out in the middle of nowhere, and it was full of giants. And there's an old Native American tale that these giants were eating their tribe members. Um, and so they I think the story goes they asked them to please not eat, our humankind anymore, and the giants, they wouldn't do it. And so there was a battle that ensued, and they ended up, I think they trapped the giants in the cave, and that's how they ended up dying in the cave.
Hmm.
But this was always a myth, or like a folklore thing in Nevada, in northern Nevada, and they've actually found the remains.
Right.
So do
Yep.
you think that could
And
have
that
been
I
angels?
yes, because that's another piece of the Nephilim is that because they mated with humans, they became human. And then I've heard this piece too about them eating, you know, other ones. Um, and then all you have to do for anybody who does know scripture is you go to the story of David and Goliath. Goliath was a giant. So there's a crossover there in religious texts that sort of validates the Nephilim, and yet they took those three books out and say that it's just a bunch of hogwash.
Yeah, they definitely
This,
need to put them back.
yeah, this is what I love about this because you just keep learning more and more, and you just keep trying to fit more and more of the pieces together. Not that we're ever going to have a full picture, but it's just like a little more here and a little more there.
Mhm. And
And
it's
like
in
everyone says, quite rightly so, the veil is getting thinner. The veil is truly getting thinner.
it is, you're right, especially with social media now and how quickly information is transferred and how people are starting to look outside of their, um, I don't wanna say dogma, but their religious teachings. You're able to actually look at other religions and what they believe and see that they're all almost the same story-wise. They all have, like, a Messiah, and they all end the same way with some kind of resurrection and happy ending and, the whole deal. It's
Right.
in
And they all have angels. That is
Yes.
for sure a common thread that weaves through, like I said, not just religions, but cultures who had no religions. They were pagan or whatever the case might be. But the angels are still there. And I believe it's because of the piece that they're messengers, that is their sole purpose. And there's something in those messages that one day we're all going to get the message.
So you were 3 years old when you first recognized
Experience.
that experienced an angel. I was about 2
Mhm.
or 3 too when I first, experienced paranormal, but how did you make that connection at such a young age that this is an angel?
Right? With the help of my mom, who is 95, she is still here. She is sharp as can be. And so as I started thinking about all these things in my life where I know for sure that it was angels present, I started asking her. And what it was is it was a Sunday school Christmas program. And here I am, 3 years old, and she stuck me out front to sing the final verse of Away in a Manger in the Christmas program. My voice then and now is you don't want me to sing solo. Let's just put it that way. I can sing, I can keep a melody, but I am not a solo singer. But as my mom said, my voice came through at just shy of 3 years old like an angelic voice. and yet still a child's voice. She'd never heard that voice out of me when we were practicing. And she would make me sing all the time because when I first started to talk, I stuttered. Well, one way to get somebody past stuttering is to have them sing because you can't stutter if you're singing. It's almost impossible. She never heard that voice until in that program. And when I started asking, she said, that was an angel coming through you. And she said it was as pure and angelic as it could possibly be. And she said she has never heard the church so still. She didn't say quiet, she said still. She said it was just like everybody was gathered in that moment into that verse of that song.
So this
It gives me
angel
the
was
chills.
it
It
was
really does.
so there was an angel channeling through you.
My guardian angel, I used to call her Bridget. I've since learned because she's been talking to me, and I say she because when she comes, I see her as a female. Angels are genderless, but she comes through as a female. Um, the way I found out her name, I thought was Bridget, was because I kept hearing bridge, bridge. I thought it meant that it was my work was to be the bridge between the two worlds. That's what I thought. But then I'm going about my business here with Survivor Angels, calling her Bridget all the time, and she's coming through. She's still going Bridge, Bridge, and it's like your name is just Bridge, and I got an affirmative from her, and it's like, okay, sorry, my apologies, I'll get it right. But it was interesting. It was confirmed to me who she is, that she's with me. We were investigating at the Bell Mansion here in January, and a psychic medium who was there with us, she walked over to me and she said, you have this beautiful lady over your right shoulder. She has beautiful red hair and she's wearing a blue dress. That I knew by her description was the guardian angel as she has always presented herself to me. So I have to believe that Bridges is the one who channels for me.
That's a really interesting name too, because of the connection of bridging the two worlds.
Right?
I've actually heard another medium say that he had a dream about being on a bridge with a bunch of people underneath the bridge, and um, I think he was having a hard time in his life or something at that time. He was at kind of like one of the crossroads, like I was at a couple years ago, and he said that in this particular dream or vision, I call it a vision, he said that his whole purpose in life was to help the people that were under the bridge.
Okay.
So, but I couldn't, I didn't really understand what that meant until what you just said now. He's a medium, so he's crossing people, or he's
Right.
connecting the two worlds. And that's similar to what you do.
Exactly. Right. Another time we were investigating at Joliet State Prison, and one of my daughters and her husband were there with us, and we were coming out of one of the cell blocks, and she said to me, we need to go back in because was her husband said he had some spirits that desperately wanted to cross over and he wasn't able to help them, and both he and her are very strong paranormal wise. If you ask them if they're psychic mediums, they will kind of poo poo it. I think that they both are. And so we went back in and we joined hands and silence. Sometimes when I help to cross people over, I speak, but in this case, we knew it was to be silent. And all of a sudden, for me, I saw everything, just this bright light consume the three of us. And I just held that because for me, that was the portal opening for them. And then when we got outside, then I asked them, I said, what did you see? And they said, we saw them, each of them go through the portal. I didn't see them go, But I held the portal because that's what I saw was the portal. And so I held that open and they then sent them through.
Wow.
It's cool when it happens.
So is everybody assigned um like a guardian angel?
Yes. Sometimes even more than one. It depends. And sometimes they will swap out. And that's the only thing I can think of with that is because since our souls keep um, revisiting here until we get our soul contracts right, and then we finally, don't need to come back. I have to believe that our guardian angels swap out because maybe the next time that we come, or maybe 3, 4 times down the line, we need a different kind of help from them. And so they'll go, okay, like a relay, it's your turn, and do that. So one for sure, but I think that as we go through our soul life, if you will, that we can have more than one. Mhm.
Are all spirit guides angels?
I believe that there's a difference between spirit guides and angels. Um, I'm not quite sure how to describe this because I'm so entrenched with my angels. Um, a good person to talk to about that, and if you haven't had her on your podcast, you need to get her on, is Sarah Lemos, because she can talk spirit guides forever and she knows them so well. I highly recommend Sarah. Um, I believe that they're different, and Sarah would tell you the same thing. So I, I'm just going to leave it at that because she's the expert. That's
Give it
kind of
to
not
the
my
experts.
wheelhouse.
So, what is Survival Angels? This is an organization that you've created through your experiences, right?
Repeat, you cut out a little bit.
What is Survival Angels, the
Survivor Angels.
organization? Yes.
Um, Survivor Angels is an approach that I coined to help people who struggle with life or have had traumatic situations, to show them how, when they call on the angels, they can help them to move into a better place. It is not a substitute for professional therapy. I am a life coach. I'm an intuitive empath. I am a shadow healer and a light worker, but I am not a professional therapist. So I make that very clear right up front. What the angels can do is they can bring those messages that if you are feeling really anxious in a situation, if you open yourself up, they will help to calm you. If you're depressed, they will come to you and suggest maybe an activity to sort of move you out of the deep depression in that moment. Angels cannot heal you. They cannot cure you of anything. Only you can heal yourself, or with the help of a professional, you can be healed. However, the angels are always present. They're there to comfort you and support you and bring you those messages that you need. Um, you have to watch for the fallen angels, especially if you are depressed, because you're open to anything when you're depressed and you are enveloped in darkness. And if you've had, a bit of that dark in your life, you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you start grasping at anything that comes at you. And so that's where I tell people you have to listen very closely to that message. If it's not positive, it's a fallen angel. If it's coming through as something that's very dark and negative, that is a fallen angel, and literally run from it. Do not go there. But if it's something that is light filled and loving and positive and something that's going to bring your energy and frequencies up, then you're talking to an angel that's filled with light and love. And that, I always say, that's the one on your right shoulder and the darkness one's on your left shoulder. And that's how so many, again, of the texts will tell you too, that the good is on the right and the bad is on the left.
And it's so important to have that discernment too, because I feel like when you're in that dark place, for
Mhm.
some reason that the demonic side and darkness and negativity just really gets drawn to you.
It does. Angels come through um, audibly for me. Um, Only once did I ever hear them say my name, but I will get ringing in my ears. That's one thing that I get. The ringing in my right ear tells me that's the message I need to listen to. For some reason, lately, I've been getting a lot in my left ear, but I have a lot going on in my life right now, um, and they're trying to get to me. Um, I had a lot of people, trying to push a lot of positivity my way because for some reason I am under attack right now, and I believe it's because Survivor Angels is starting to reach so many people, which is what it's all about. I have never been in Survivor Angels to make money. It is just to get people the help that they need, because people in the mental health field, there aren't enough professionals out there.
Mhm.
And so to get an appointment with somebody is almost impossible. And depending on
Yeah.
what area of the country and the world you're in, it is very, very almost impossible to do. And so to bring in the angels, so at least for a moment, they've got something to hang on to, something that will give them hope. That is what Survivor Angels is all about. And so I'm just, I wake up some mornings and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then because the first thing I always do is talk to my angels, the first thing they do is they go wipe up against the side of my head and go, you've got a mission. Get out there and get busy.
Well, I think too, though, because you are a light worker and creating the angel survivors to help other people, you would be under attack because if you think about if you think about the spirit world in terms of an actual war, who are they going to take down? Those who have influence for the greater good.
Right.
So it only would make
And
sense that the light workers would naturally be kind of attacked in some way.
right. Right. And I know that I'm specifically an angel light worker and a shadow healer because of my intuitive empath side. Well, that's both of them. The shadow healer, delves deep into the dark where the angel light worker is all out in the light. And so there is a major war going on within me with what I do, because in order to help those, uh, I don't call anybody a victim. Everybody is a survivor. You're only a victim in the moment where the traumatic event or situation is happening. After that, you've survived. It still might not be pretty, but you've survived. Well, I still have to get into that deep darkness because mentally they're still sitting in there and we need to bring them up out of it. And that's with the angels.
So you're, in a sense, trying to wake them up.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
It's kind of like,
And
in mediumship too, in the spirit world. It's kind of the idea when you see a spirit that I don't wanna say stuck because you're never stuck in a place. I don't believe spirits get stuck anywhere, but I think they
no,
get kind of lost in
right.
kind of their own stuff, right?
Hmm.
So, I feel like, when you're trying to help a spirit cross over, you're in essence trying to wake them up. Is
Hmm.
that kind of the idea?
Yes, it's the same thing. Think about ourselves when life is just going on day after day, same thing, and you kind of get stuck in a rut. And it's the same thing. You're just in this rut, even if you're I because I'm in Minnesota and I grew up in with winter and snow and everything, your tires spin and you dig the rut and it's just the car's just rocking, you're trying to get out of it. It's kind of the same thing. You just need that push that finally, frees you. And then it's like, okay, there we go. Let's move on.
What are some of the transformations that you have seen in people's personal lives who've come to you for help?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Hmm. Have to stop and think. Okay, this is a little of an offshoot, but I just want to bring this in so people know how the angels work. When I went to Ireland a couple of years ago, I went on a mission. My husband and I had been there back in 2000, and then we went with a paranormal group in 2022. My mission was to find my Celtic angel. I knew I had a Celtic angel, and they call it Anam Cara, which means soul friend. I had no idea what that meant. What did that look like? Is it going to be someone who manifests as an angel? Is it going to be an actual person? Is it going to be just a feeling that I get when I get there? I'm going in blind. I don't know anything except this is what I wanted to do. And so it was 2 days before our trip ended. And I'm walking with our bus driver. We had just come from one of the ancient sites, Druid site, and we were walking on the path and we were just talking and he was telling me his life story, and the more he told me, the more it was like we became one. And in that moment I knew that was my Celtic angel. I didn't say anything. So the next night we had our final dinner, and we are kind of going around the room and people were, telling about what was your most memorable moment. So I said, my mission was to find my Celtic angel coming to Ireland, blah, 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 all of this. And I said, I found him. And of course, everybody's like, well, what? Who? How does that work? And I said, well, he's standing right over there. And I pointed at our bus driver. I don't know who was more surprised, everybody in the room or him. But we got done and I went over to him and he said, I thought I was the only one that felt it. I said, no, I said, I felt it too. And so if people want to go back, they can watch my podcast. It's called My Celtic Angel. And it's a whole podcast with just him and I. They can see that. But that's how these transforming pieces happen, is when you least expect them. So
Hmm.
as far as an example, because there's because I hesitate to talk about people who I've actually helped because it's kind of a privacy thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but just to, I'm going to retell a story. And this again is on one of my podcasts. And if you go back and look at the one that talks about childhood trauma, that's where this one is. Very dear friend of mine told me her story growing up. And I can tell this because she has told it on the podcast. Um, Her parents were drug users. She grew up in California. And as she said, her parents never should have had children. And I believe she has two siblings. So there were three of them. But she would watch her mom walk out the house and go down the street to the store. She would watch her out the window. And she said this one day, it was up on the second floor of a building. And she said this one day when she left, she said there was like this confetti falling out of the sky. And she was just a child. And of course, didn't have screens on the windows then. And so she was trying to reach out and grab the confetti as it's falling. And as she said,
Hmm.
she could feel a force and energy trying to pull her out of the window. At the same time, she felt another energy holding her in, keeping her inside of the building so she wouldn't fall. Well, somebody saw this and called the police and said, there's a child that's about to fall out of a window. And so the police came, and she was still in this tug of war. And of course, then they took her back inside and she was safe. And she will claim to this day that that was an angel, probably a demon, trying to pull her out with a light and love angel that was holding her fast inside of the building. And she has believed in angels ever since then. She is a psychic medium. She is probably the most sensitive psychic medium I have ever been around. I've been on several investigations with her. And so it's that sort of thing about how angels transform lives. I've talked with people near-death experiences, and to listen to them it's mind-blowing. And when they say an angel took me here and brought me back, they told me this, they told me that, you know it's real
Mhm.
because you can't make that stuff up. You just especially for all the stories that I've heard, or how they say that one person, again, another podcast, um, she was walking home or from school. I don't quite remember. And she said all of a sudden all these teenage boys surrounded her. And she was terrified because she knew that this wasn't going to end well. And all of a sudden this man appears out of nowhere. She was walking through a railroad yard. And of course, the boys took off because he said, "Get out of here." And, so she watched the boys run off. She turned around. He was gone. And she walked around, the rail yard, never could find him. She knows it was an angel that saved her from those boys. And she said, "I will believe in angels until the day I die and beyond."
You hear so many stories like that.
Mhm.
So many stories. I mean, how can it not be real when so many people have the same stories?
Right. And I know some people say to me, um, like people who read my first book, my second one is due out here shortly. They said after reading the book, all of a sudden I'm thinking about all the things in my life where now it had to be angel intervention. It had to be angels that kept me from doing that or got me to do that, whatever
Mhm.
the situation might be. And I mean, for me personally, I know the angels have saved my rear end countless times in my life. In fact, there was even one time that I should not be sitting here right now. But thanks to angels and because I listened to them, trust me, there's been times when I haven't listened to them and I paid consequences for it. But this time, thank God I did, or I wouldn't be here today, and my children wouldn't be here or anything. So I can't negate angels.
Well, that said, I do have to ask this because I have to, I gotta throw this part out there too. A lot of people will set up altars and almost like worship angels. We're not supposed to do that, are we?
There's no reason to. Um, Angels are not there to be worshipped. And what I always tell people too is they'll say, "Well, I don't believe in angels," and I said, "You don't have to believe in them. They believe in you, and that's all that matters." Y- And so, worship them, don't worship them. None of that is necessary at all. You just be open. You might hear something, you might see something, you might know something. People know about the four clairs, audience, sentient,
Mhm.
clairvoyant, and claircognizant, and everything. They're coming through to you in all four. Some of yours are going to be stronger than others. I've got my four pretty fine tuned to balance right now. Otherwise, clairsentient and claircognizant were my two strongest ones, but I've really been working on them. Um, yeah, just pay attention because they're there for you. And just
I
say
was
thank you. That's all you have to
Yeah,
do.
I was just
No,
gonna ask you
no
that. Are
worship,
we
no.
supposed to thank them somehow, you know?
Yeah, just a simple thank you. You know, that's they they're just energy with no agenda except to bring you messages. So it's not like they're narcissistic and they're going, "Well, hey, come on. Come on. Where's my thank you?" It's not like that.
And that brings up an interesting point too. They really don't seem to have that unless the fallen angels do though, right? They
Oh,
kinda
they
have
do.
that. Yeah.
They are
Hmm.
very
The
narcissistic,
corrupted ones. The corrupted
right?
ones.
Yep. Arrogant and narcissistic, and it's all about them. And if they can flip somebody to the dark side, it's like, yeah, did it. I did it. Hmm.
Wow, can you believe we're almost at the bottom of the hour already? I have to ask you
Wow.
about Angel Trippin, your book. What is that about and where can people purchase that?
All right. Well, they could get it. They can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I mean, just, Google Angel Trippin. It's also available in 14 countries, which is really nice, and both on an ebook or in print. So whichever way you prefer. Um, Angel Trippin is about traveling with your angels because my husband and I travel a lot, and I've traveled a lot since I was very young. My parents were travelers, which I'm so appreciative of. And so it's how, as you're getting ready to travel, as you're making all of your plans, then depending on what mode of travel you're going on, how the angels will come in different ways. When you're on vacation, um, foods that you will eat, smells that you will, encounter, all these different things. And it's as you apply it to traveling, whether you travel or not, it's going to show you how just in your ordinary everyday life the angels are there, and how you can be noticing them and be aware of them, and therefore start opening yourself up to receive the messages. So the travel piece, and that's where the tripping comes in, is just sort of a venue, if you will, to highlight how the angels work in our lives. And there's tons of stories and tips and all of that.
What is the most profound place you've been to?
Oh, hands down, Lep Castle in Ireland. Oh
You're
my
like
gosh.
the third person who's mentioned that place to me this week.
Everybody should put it on their bucket list if they want to experience the paranormal. Um, my husband and I went there on our honeymoon back in 2000, and we actually met Sean Ryan for the first time. He gave us a private tour because we were staying at Community Castle, which was just down the road a piece. Um, didn't have anything happen except we had some kind of odd feelings. It was daytime. That doesn't mean anything can't happen. Of course, it has a very dark history, a very dark past. Well, when we went 2 years ago, um, a murdered priest came through, a channeler, because the demonic presence that is in there, the murderer that is part of Lep Castle, was trying to overtake me. And it was very clear, all the directions from the channeler and everything, the woman with the white scarf. I was the only one with a white scarf and everything. Because an incident had happened the week before to a gentleman, the paranormal team from Ireland that we were with, they pulled me out right away because they started recognizing similar signs. And it was a good thing because I'm an ordained pastor. The week before, it was a gentleman who was a minister. The demon actually got a hold of him and pulled his arms straight above his head and lifted him off the ground. He was levitating off the ground and was in severe pain. They thought they were going to have to call an ambulance until they could finally break him out of it. And so they recognized that what had happened to him was starting to happen to me. And so they pulled me out ahead of time. And thankfully, then that did not happen to me. But I have at least 14 witnesses that saw this, one of them being Dave Schrader, because Dave Schrader was the ambassador on this trip. And Dave will vouch for it hands down. In fact, I had to have Dave help me to clear it out afterwards because I didn't want to take anything out with me. So,
Wow.
Leb Castle.
Have you been to Huska by any chance? Huska Castle in the
No, I
Czech?
have not. No.
Put that on your bucket list. I
Okay.
went there with Dave Schrader, and my friend just messaged me. She's listening to the show, and she asked me to ask you this, and it's because I've had a really profound experience at Huska Castle, and so did a couple of other people who was on that trip, and it's been in my dreams and everything. This place,
Oh,
like I feel
wow.
like compelled to go back and spend a night there. It's that
Well,
bad.
maybe we'll have to go together.
Yeah, we should definitely go.
Okay.
It's the only castle in the world that's built to keep something in versus something out. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
it's really interesting. But okay,
Noted.
we're out of time, and I'll get in trouble if we go over. So I could talk to you all night. Um,
Right?
Where can people
This has
sign
been
up for your
fun.
classes, and where can they find you?
I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. It's always Survivor Angels, Chaplain Jodi. My classes are on Teachable. I put them up one at a time. I believe right now I've got the basic angel class up there. I will probably swap that out, maybe first part of the summer or so. I just like to have people have enough time to go in and take them and everything. And of course, the podcast is, video wise, YouTube and Spotify video, and then every other place that podcasts are on.
Well, Jodi, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you having to met you. This is the first time I've met you, and you just seem like a lovely person. We definitely need to go investigating or something in the future.
I would love to do that with you. And thank you so much for having me on and let me talk about my favorite subject.
Oh, this could totally go on for 2 hours. I'll have you back to talk about your second book that's coming out.
Sounds good.
All right. You've been listening to The Gateway, your portal to the unexplained and mystical and otherworldly, broadcast live from United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. Find me online at CL Thomas on social media to find out the latest in books and artwork created by me, your host, at www.clthomas.org. Until next time. I don't know why it hasn't ended yet, but it's supposed to.
Tell more stories.
You could. I know we're over. It's 7:05. So I don't know if they're not paying attention. I guess you could tell another story.
Okay. A really interesting one when I was in high school. I was a hockey cheerleader, and it was back when they just kind of started having cheerleaders for hockey. If you need to cut me off, let me know, and we'll save it for another time. Um, we were way up in northern Minnesota for the game, and we were driving back, and there was an ice storm, and the roads became glare ice. And so the bus driver finally just pulled the bus over because he didn't want to chance it anymore. Because at that point, it was just, cheerleaders and players that went to the games along with the coaches. Um, and so one of our captains said, "How about if a couple of us put on our skates and we skate to the next town?" Because this is pre-cell phone. This is even pre-computer days. I'm really dating myself. And the coach is like, I mean, there didn't appear to be any traffic on the freeways. And he said, "Okay, but you guys be careful." And it was funny because one of the guys that went with said, "Not to worry, we've always got angels with us." And sure enough, they skated to the next town, which thankfully was just a couple miles away. And they came back, and what they had done is they called one set of parents who started the phone tree then to let all the other parents know what had happened and why we're not back at the school yet for them to, pick us up or anything. Um, and as they came back, it got tougher for them to skate on the road. So as they got back to the bus, they realized the temperature had warmed up enough that we could drive on the road. The ice was melting. And it's just like the angels were a part of all of that. Skate, let the parents know, get back, and it's melting, and now you can go home. We were all just like, "Yep, I think there were some angels involved here."
I have a really good friend whose brother died, and the family was really distraught about it. And at their funeral, at her brother's funeral, he was a military guy. I think he was pretty well ranked, if I'm not mistaken. So
Okay.
he had that special funeral, military funeral, and they had taken some photos of what was going on. I guess they had like the firing squad and all that kind of stuff
Yep.
there.
Hmm.
And in one of the photos, you see this bright blue orb. And, you know, as a photographer, I I just, I don't go for the orb thing at all because it's always like
Right.
refractions and lens refractions. That's why it's always round, that kind of thing. But this one, it had its own light. It was the brightest orb I've ever seen, and it was blue. And there's no way the lens could have refracted off of anything with this. And there's nothing around it or anything. And to this day,
Mhm.
I think it was Angel Michael
Yep. That would
surrounding
have
the
been Michael.
company. Mhm.
Which would make sense if he was military, they're our protectors, and makes perfect sense. Again, when we were in Ireland, one of the gals that we were with, she took a picture in a jail in Cork, Ireland, and my husband happened to be with. I stayed back that night, and she showed him the picture, and it was an orb, but it had a shape in it. When there's a shape in an orb, it's an angel. So, because otherwise, and you probably know from being a photographer, to get a shape into, and it'll be a geometric shape,
Mhm.
and that was, but yeah, that sounds absolutely like it was Michael. That is so
Absolutely.
cool. I know I officiated at a military funeral out at Fort Snelling here about 6 months ago, and I knew that the person, the deceased, hadn't crossed over, and I looked at his mom sitting there, and I said, he's here with us right now. And she said, yes. She said, I know he's here. And I said, should we cross him over? And she said, yes. She said, let's cross him over. So that one I did verbally with the help of everybody who was there at the graveside service. That's why I say sometimes I do them silently, sometimes I do them audibly.
Mhm.
And it was really cool because a couple of people afterwards said, we could feel him leave. And I'm just like, yes.
And you can, because I tried to cross, 2 people over in a ghost town. It was a woman and a daughter, and I guess from what I picked up being in this ghost town, the lady was, I guess her husband must have died somehow in a mining accident or something happened to him,
Okay.
and, um, she was stuck there, and the building that I picked her up in turns out to be an office, like a pay office, and I think she was trying to collect the money so that she can get on a train to get back to wherever it was that she had to take the girl. The girl was, like, maybe 6 to 9 years old, real little,
Okay.
and this was, like, a really remote ghost town, really rough too, one of the rougher
Mm,
ones. And what I was picking up on was the company would not give her the money, basically, the pay that was
right.
owed to them. Um, but for whatever reason, she was there, and on the EVP, I caught "Help me," a couple of times from the same voice after picking all this up. So I went back with a couple friends, and what I when I try to cross people over, what I do is I call on Michael, the Archangel Michael. So most of the time I do it silently because I believe that they can hear you um, anyway. But
Mhm.
um, I was trying to cross them over, and um, I went back the third time after doing that, and I got on as an EVP. I got "Thank you." Clear as day, "Thank you," from a woman's voice, the same voice.
Nice.
So, it was very surreal, because I didn't really think that you could actually cross people over, but you can.
Right. And I usually use Azrael. The only thing, you have to be careful when you use Azrael, because Azrael can go dark or light. They're what we call a dark angel, where they sort of sit on the fence, and depending which way they want to flop, they flop. And so when I use Azrael, I always say, and I do this with all my angels anyway, but for sure with Azrael, I say Azrael in light and love, because I don't want Azrael heading for the dark with somebody. I want them to go to the light.
That's
But Azrael
interesting.
is the angel of death,
Huh. You
and it's
know,
it's to help cross. Yeah, it's to help cross over, and it's to help. Azrael also helps those who are left behind too.
I have a question too about that, and then we can wrap this up. I think we're not actually live anymore on the radio show. I don't think so anyway. I think it's still going on the YouTube though. Usually Joe pops back in here, but he didn't. So I had this dream, and I have like really realistic dreams all the time. And most of
Huh?
the time when I have a dream like that, it means something. And so maybe about a year and a half ago, I had this dream where I know it was an angel that showed up in a dream, and I saw a name that was in a stone. I was like in an old building, and there was a stone, and it said a name, and it was Adriel, but it was spelled differently. Um, it was no, it wasn't Adriel. It was Ariel. That's what it was. It was
Oh,
Ariel,
Ariel.
and
Yes.
I saw that name, and the angel said, "That's your name." And I said, "No, that's not what I'm called. That's not my name." And they argued with me. "Yes, that's your name." It was the weirdest thing. So,
That might have been your name in another soul life.
I don't know. It was totally weird though.
Yeah. Yeah, Ariel is spelled a couple of different ways depending on what the source is, because Judaism spells it one way, Christianity spells it another way, Islam spells it another way. Yeah, so Ariel is one of those that has multiple spellings.
Yeah, it was definitely spelled. I have it in my journal somewhere, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the Jewish spelling, come to think of
Okay,
it.
probably. That's the
Because I
most
was
common
looking it
one.
up and I'm like, okay, that's not the angel. It's not an angel. What are they talking about? I know
Right.
it means something, but I'm not sure. It's one of those kind of things.
Yeah.
But Jodi, thank you so much. You're a lot of fun to talk to.
Oh, this has been great. I have so enjoyed this myself. Yes.
I'm definitely going to have you back on so we can talk more
Okay.
about
I'll have
angels
you
and
come on
stuff.
mine and we'll talk more stuff.
Oh, I would love to. I
Okay.
would love to.
And
And
we'll go castle investigating too.
yes, Huska Castle. You should really come with me on that one. It's really that castle, for it has a hold on me, and I'll tell you real quick what happened. So Dave Schrader and all them were on the second floor, and they were doing the table tipping thing, and they were getting the spirit to table tip, and it was spinning the table and all that stuff. But I was so distracted by another thing. I saw like he was a Nazi soldier. He was in full uniform, the green full uniform. He had the band on and everything. Um, and I don't even know where this comes from because I don't know of any history of the Nazis being at this place. But he was screaming and yelling at this lady, this smaller woman with black hair, and like she was basically against the wall while he was screaming at her. Very abusive, angry guy. And the whole time it was just like overtaking almost. Like I couldn't even focus on what was going on in the room because of this. Um,
Huh.
And as that table was like spinning and stuff, that's the energy. I was feeling his energy, like just kind of whirling, that angry energy. But
Right.
I told somebody else I had to get out of that room. So we left and we went downstairs. It's another medium friend of mine. We went down into the basement, and this is where there's supposed to be a like a shrine built for demons, and there's like demonic faces and stuff all in the walls. Everywhere. And it's because this castle was built to keep demons in, because the villagers back in like the first century thought that um, the demons were coming up out of this water well and making them sick. And I guess they were dying. It wasn't plague, it was something else.
Mhm.
It was some illness that was killing them though. And lo and behold, we go down there, and there's like this giant iron cross hanging from the ceiling upside down. It started to swing back and forth. And I'm not even
Oh,
talking a little bit. It was like really, we have it on video. It was like really swinging back and forth.
wow.
And to this day, it's like this place has, like, it's calling me. It's in my dreams. It's like everywhere. I
Okay.
can't
Oh,
get it out of, yeah,
okay.
exactly. So I feel like I need to go back there and
We're going to put some extra protection on you then too.
I feel like I
Yeah,
need to go confront it for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know
right.
what the deal is.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting.
I know it sounds totally weird, but that's my
No,
experience at Huska Castle.
right? I believe anything is possible.
And I just remember leaving and I looked at Maria and I said, "The energy in that place is just totally disgusting." And I wanna go back, so I don't know. I'm weird.
Nope. Nope. Curious. Very curious.
But there you go.
All right. This has been fun.
All right, Jodi, I'm gonna leave you to it.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
All right. Sounds good.